All right, guys, welcome back to Rome Reviews. I'm Rome, and today I want to do a 1 week later on the Oppo Find N6. And to be honest, I normally don't do 1 week laters because I feel like I haven't had enough time with the phone. But with this one, I could tell right away, especially since I've had the N5 and I've used it for a long time, the experience won't be drastically different. So I could say a few things about this one. All right, so let's get into it. All right, so first things first, you'll see that I do have the Find N5 on the left, and I have it there because the whole time, the entire time that I was using the N6, I was always thinking about the N5 and what was different and how the phone felt while I was using it and if it felt better or worse. So I'm here to say that the N6 is better, and it's a big enough jump, in my opinion, just my opinion now, to justify this generation of device. Okay, so out of the gate, let's talk about build quality. So I'm going to close up the N5 and wipe it off. Goodness, has a lot of fingerprints on it. You can tell I've been using both of these devices. So let's close both. And you may not be able to tell because I have such a dark wallpaper on, but let me see if I can find like a bright background. Let's see. All right, so I have this Notebook Check, an article, actually not an article, but just their main page where you get a bunch of different news feeds of what's going on in tech and blah, blah, blah. So what I want to point out, and which someone pointed out to me in my comments as well, I noticed it, I just didn't think it was a big of a deal, but someone noticed it, so I want to cover it. So first thing first, you can see that the bezels are noticeably thinner on the on look, I said OnePlus because I was about to talk about the OnePlus with a friend. But anyway, you can see that the bezels are noticeably thinner on the N6 than they are on the N5, which is not a huge deal, but it does give you more screen real estate. So I mean, however little it may be, it does give you more. So that's one of the noticeable changes. One of the things I am not a fan of is when these different companies go away from their alert slider, and mainly Oppo, because I love this alert slider. It has a 2-tick on it. So right now silent, then you go to vibrate, and then you go to ring, or you go to vibrate, and then you go to ring, and then you go to silent. I love that. And you just don't have that here. You have to go into the menu on this device, and then you have to choose to silent, ring, vibrate. And I would rather be able to do it by just sliding without having to open the phone or unlock the phone. But anyway, as far as build quality goes, the N5 was already built amazingly well, in my opinion. And the N6 just continues that pattern. The hinge feels amazing when you're opening and closing the device. And you can see there. And I like that it snaps open at the very end. That's one of my favorite features. It makes you aware that the phone is open flat. And I feel like you don't get that on a lot of other foldables. I like that snap at the end where it just opens completely flat. I love that. So build quality out of the way, because there's not really a lot to go into build quality. They're both built so well that there's not a major difference in that department. The only thing, and I gotta mention it because it has been the focus of the marketing for the N6, is the hinge and the crease. And you can see that crease is noticeable on the N5, very noticeable. Let me come out of there. And you see when the light hits it, very noticeable. All right. And that has changed on the N6. Let me go back to the home screen so you can see same treatment. You see, but it's so much less noticeable. And I gotta give them kudos for that. I know that I don't feel like the crease should be the focus of the device, but it is impressive. And even more so that, I mean, I'm a reviewer, so I have to cover it. Yes, you do feel the crease way more than you do on here. You almost don't feel it. You almost don't feel it. Even after I've been using it, folding it, and keeping it closed for long periods of time, for the past week, you still don't notice it. And on top of that, I feel like a lot of people don't mention it, but There's supposed to be some type of self-healing tech in this screen where the longer you keep it open, the more it heals and gets much closer to being like it was when you first took it out of the box. I don't know how true that is because I've kept this phone open for long periods of time as well. And I can't necessarily tell the difference, but that's not a bad thing because I feel like the crease hasn't become more indented with longer periods of use with me closing it constantly and keeping it closed and so on and so forth. They've done a brilliant job on that. So I just want to harp on that a little bit since that's been the what is that? Okay. Since that's been the focus of the marketing for Oppo for this device. But just keeping, let's keep going with the differences. So as far as brightness goes, I have them pretty much on the same brightness, but I hope this translates through on camera. But I was noticing that when I was out in direct light or just I had direct light hitting it, I noticed that the N6 was brighter, considerably brighter than the N5 was. It's really hard to tell in the studio. Actually, the N5, I think it's the warmth of the screen, but it makes it look brighter to me when I'm looking at the screen on the camera right now that I'm recording with. But just trust me, this phone is noticeably brighter. You can see like when you try to look at like really bright icons, things like that. I wish I had a clock here. Let's see, the menu, you see that? It's brighter. You can tell it's brighter. And that's just another thing. Really good job, Oppo. I mean, they've added that brightness, which a lot of people complain about with the Find N5. So hopefully I'm not turning it down too low. And I tested the speakers in a previous video, and I could tell you that even though that test doesn't do justice to the speakers and their quality, they have improved quite a bit. They are noticeably better. I'm not going to play any music here because I just feel like it doesn't translate through video as well. But the speakers are better as well. And the haptics are better as well. They're a little bit stronger. I won't say it's a night and day difference, just like I did in my previous video. It's not a night and day difference, but it is better. They are better. So this device is just each one of those boxes that it checks with each thing that's a little bit better or considerably better, it justifies this device a little bit more when you go from the N5, especially since they dialed back quite a few features, namely haptic speakers and cameras, especially the ultra wide camera. They dialed it back quite a bit on this device. So yeah, this device is a justified upgrade. And keeping with that, now there's one thing I'm about to complain about because I don't like when companies do this, where they soft lock you they soft lock features into the newer device to add a little more justification and more encouragement for people to get this device. So one moment. So you'll see, I pulled up 3 apps on here. Let's do it on here. All right. So one of the things I'm not a huge fan of is, like I said, software locks. And let's say right here, let's do a floating window on the N5. Let's do another floating window. And you see how it minimizes it. So you can't have multiple floating windows on here, but on the N6, you can. Floating window, floating window. And you have a lot of movement with them. You can resize them, so on. Look at that. The N5 is fully capable of this. I do not get why companies try to, they put these new software features on the newer device and it's just like they just leave it off of the old one. And I just don't get that. I don't understand that. And I wish they didn't do that because the hardware changes should be enough to where you don't have to soft lock things to the newer device. I don't get that. But all that aside, I just want to gripe about that a little bit. But on the cameras, let's go ahead and pull up that. All right, so what I'll say is, and like I said, it's been 1 week, so I really haven't spent a ton of time with the cameras themselves. But I do want to mention that I do trust the cameras on the N6 a lot more, especially since, you know, when you're carrying a foldable device, you want it to be the only device that you're carrying. I trust this device a lot. Now, I'm not going to go through pictures a lot because I want to save that stuff for like the full review and just, you know, just hit you in the face with a bunch of photos. But I do want to say that when it comes to information, I was trying to snap these as closely together as possible, but the N6 retains a lot more information about what's in frame. That you can make out the truck a lot more on the N6 than you can on the N5. And it just retains a lot more information throughout the entire photo. And I mean, it's a step up, quite a step up. Now, while the camera hardware is considerably the same outside of the ultra wide, I will say that they're doing something here that's not being done here, even with the other cameras. I don't know if it's the newer technology, the processing's changed a bit, or what it is. There are a ton of camera guys on YouTube that test these things thoroughly and can explain them. I am not going to slaughter that. I'm not about to slaughter it. Just understand that to my eyes, the N6 is better. Especially when it comes to ultra wide, but I'll get into that in a full review. Okay, we'll get into all of that. But what I want to do there is say that, you know, doing 1 week later, I just want to touch bases on the fact that the Find N6 is holding up very well. The hype is well justified with this device. I mean, they've done an incredible job. I love this foldable. It's easily my favorite. Now, to be fair, I haven't done the Honor Magic V6. I haven't tested it thoroughly. I haven't gotten my hands on it at all. So, but with that being said, I wasn't as excited about it either as I was for the Find N6. Now, I would say that the Find N5 left a large enough gap to justify me being more excited for the N6 than the V5 did with from, you know, the V5 to the V6, because the V5 was such a well-rounded device that I feel like there's nothing they can do with the V6 except for slightly improve on the crease, or, you know, just little, just ever so slight tweaks that just didn't make me excited for the V6 like it did for the Find N6, because I knew that they were going to bump up the cameras, you know, and just all these different changes, because the Find N5, as much as I loved it, it did leave some things to be desired. So I knew that they were going to step up with the Find N6. But anyway, I just wanted to do a 1 week later and just let you guys know that I love this device. I don't think that's going to change over the next month unless something goes drastically wrong, but we'll see. But anyway, this has been 1 week later. I'm Rome, and I really appreciate you guys hanging in here with me. All right, feel free to like and subscribe. It goes a long way for the channel, and I will catch you in the next one. Later.